Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to What's on the Playlist today. Today we're talking about the album From Dreams or Angels by Abney Park, an image of which you will see here. Abney Park is the brainchild of Robert Brown, born in 1997. He remains the lead singer, songwriter, production manager, my production designer, pretty much runs the whole show. They're still active today, still putting out new albums and stuff. So they've been active for almost 30 years now. Damn. The reason on my first review of their band is of their fifth album is because I did not discover them, I think, until around 2012, 2013. And a lot of their older catalog is hard to get on CDs. And if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know how I feel about just downloading stuff. You could download their entire catalog dirt cheap if you're willing to just download it, but I want the CDs. So I don't have their whole catalog. This is the earliest one I have. Abney Park started out as kind of an industrial goth band, or at least that's what they were labeled as, and Robert Brown kind of went with it. But even then, even back in the original days, they kind of were considered to have pioneered the steampunk movement, even though they did not really, at the time, and at the time of this album, consider themselves, excuse me, piece of lint or something, consider themselves a steampunk band. It wasn't until a couple albums later where they did the full transition. They were still, at the time of this recording, a goth industrial band, and they performed very well on, industrial rock charts, goth charts, and dark metal charts. They were kind of labeled that because of Robert Brown's kind of deep, gravelly voice, and the tempo, the sound. Robert Brown himself lived all over the world. I think he was an army brat, something along those lines. So he was exposed to a lot of music from other cultures, and he's kind of incorporated that into the sound of the band. It's a lot of it's hard for me to explain. But the funny thing is, even though, like, he says he's transitioned, they transitioned to a steampunk style, I went and listened. I listened to this album prior to making this recording. I also went back and found some songs from their first album and listened to them. And the sound isn't that different. I mean, some of these songs, like the first half of the album, The Root of All Evil, Tiny Monster, Holy War, Kine, I think some of these songs would not sound out of place if they were on Aether Shanties, which was one of their later more steampunk influenced albums. So their sound has changed a bit, but not enough to make this stuff sound out of place. If it was, played, they wouldn't have to remix anything. It still sounds like them, even decades later. I think this was released in 2002, I think. Does it say? It does not say. But I was looking at it a few minutes ago, and I think it's 2002. The first half of the album is a bit more up-tempo and is more of the sound I think of them when I think of their music. I have more of their later stuff, the steampunky stuff. And it's got that rhythm and beat that I'm accustomed to. The second half of the album, starting with the song maybe Breathe, but certainly Hush. The last few songs of the album, the last half of the album, is a bit slower in tempo, a bit softer in tone. I really can't describe it. I can't compare them with anything to give you an idea of what they are if you haven't heard them. I've heard nothing that sounds like them. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but for me at least, their sound is very unique. As I said, I haven't heard anything that I can remotely compare this to. I really do, and I'm not sure why I got interested in them. They were someone on Facebook posted a video of one of their songs from the album Aether Shanties, which I wound up buying. Um, and it wasn't until like, I listened to it a lot. I do know that one of their songs, I don't know what album it was, I don't think it's on this one, was on the HBO series True Blood. I don't know what episode, so don't ask me. You can always look it up. There is on the album an acoustic version of Breathe, which certainly does give it a different sound. I like them both. I think I like the acoustic version better just because it gives you a different experience. Because that is my one main criticism of the album, in that there's a lot of similarities in the beats and tempos and the rhythm of a lot of the songs. They've got pretty much the exact same tempo, the exact same timing. So they are kind of samey. There's a lot of similarity among the songs, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. When I when I like a band, I like their sound, and a lot of that sound comes from the instruments that they use, the chords that they use, the way in which those chords are arranged, their vocal qualities, and of course a lot of it is the tempo. And some bands mix up a tempo quite a bit. Like I said, my one criticism of Abney Park is that they use a lot of the same tempo, a lot of the same timing. I don't know what that timing is. I am not the music teacher in my family. You'd have to ask my youngest about that. But aside from that, because of the uniqueness of the sound, and because I can't give you an example to compare it to, I find it difficult to recommend this album to people, or this band to people. If you get me talking music, out and about, and I will mention bands I like. I'll ask what music you like, and then try to make recommendations of stuff that I like that you might like that you haven't heard of yet. I really do enjoy that back and forth of sharing music with people. And it is one of the reasons I started kind of doing this. Obviously I don't, know a lot about music. I just know what I like, and I have a lot that I like and a lot that I listen to. I'm not, haven't been schooled in music. I don't know a lot about rhythms, beats, tempos, instruments, chords. Beyond that, I know what I like. This band is a bit different for me, in that I tend to gravitate towards vocal harmonies and acoustic instruments. This band does not have those things. Robert Brown's voice is very gravelly. Not a lot of good solid vocal quality, and as industrial rock, as its roots, it really does have a non-acoustic sound to it. Very, very, not necessarily electronic, but it has. I'm not sure exactly what defines industrial rock. So, but I use this as an example. So, having given the background that I've mentioned, industrial rock, goth rock, and dark metal, if I have a beard here on my shirt, if those interest you, or if you're just curious, but yeah, if those types of music interest you, then I would recommend giving them a listen. If you're looking for something different and off the beaten path for music, then I would also recommend this to you. I really do love this band, and I really would love to collect their entire catalog as physical discs and not as just digital downloads. But topic for another day. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention before I sign off. There is a companion album to this called Twisted and Broken, which is a mix of songs of other people doing covers of their songs and doing remixes, which I do not have, but I found is very interesting that they had a collection of their songs. Half of the songs on the album are from this album, half from other albums. So yeah, Twisted and Broken is a compilation of this album. I wanted to get that out before I signed off. So, my stuff is crap. Thanks for watching. Good hunting.